just to making these tough decisions around the overall. Specifically with the spending review, where of course
we go over to Kent. So that is why I do some of the initiatives that we've got, some of the the amazing plan for change that the government has put in place. So you will be aware of our missions, whether it's in terms of the NHS, whether it's in terms of safer streets, whether it's in terms of how we want to unlock the potential, especially for our young people. And I know that in terms of the work that Bridget is doing within so that the skills and apprenticeships agenda is high up on the government's agenda, so that to ensure that those young people that are coming through are best suited for the various work streams that they are going into, rather than having young people who may not have had all of those opportunities within their schools. So the amount of investment that is now going on into our schools, 6,500 new teachers being recruited, the amount of money that's being pumped in is there to ensure that those young people can actually realise their full potential, and they will be better participants within the world of work. So I hope that kind of gives you a flavour for just some of the things that the government is doing. We want to ensure that the key thing to describe as to how he sees a government which is committed to working people, but which is there to serve the British people rather than serve themselves. And I hope that that's coming across. So within the recent budget, there's some difficult decisions that had to be taken in order to fix the foundations, the very foundations of the government. So that's the workings of government. I think that if we get off on that strong foundation, that if we sort out the problems within our National Health Service, you might be thinking, well, why is he talking about NHS if it's in a SME for Labour background? But if we don't tackle the huge problems within our health and social care system, then what we will have are individuals, working age individuals, who cannot join the workforce because they are still waiting months, sometimes years, for treatment. So that is why the government, the Health Secretary, we pumped in an extra £25.7 billion to tackle those record high NHS waiting lists. So thousands more doctors, nurses being recruited, and to make sure that we bring down that NHS waiting list, because if people can get treated on time, then their quality of life is enhanced, but also what will end up happening is they will be back at work, doing what they love, doing what they enjoy, a lot quicker than if they're just sitting at home waiting for their treatment. The government has also invested, for example, Slough thankfully has benefited as well from what's called community diagnostic centres. So that is where £25 million has been invested by the government to make sure that we have these community diagnostic centres around the country. So £25 million Slough Community Diagnostic Centre, which will make sure that we have thousands of tests. In fact, 150,000 tests undertaken 7 days a week. Those tests are, say, for example, blood tests, your CT scans, MRI scans, liver tests. All of those are important because people will be diagnosed in time. If they're diagnosed in time, they can be treated quicker, and then they can go about their day-to-day business and being back at work, doing what they enjoy a lot quicker than them having to wait around a long time. So I hope that kind of gives you a wider context of what is involved within the work of government, how various departments are trying to enable a more vibrant economy, having that growth within our economy, but that can only come about with a government working in partnership with business rather than a government that is working against business. But I think that through our New Deal for Working People, we've made sure that we've got the right balance between being pro-business and being pro-worker. Because if we don't get that right balance, then if either the business heads or the workers, if any of those are at a loss, then I think that has a massive impact on our economy, on our workforce. So with those introductory remarks, Catherine, I'll hand it back to yourself, and I hope that has set the right context, and now we can, especially where there wasn't as much business activity. So there's, and I know that the government has also piloted, or recent governments have piloted various schemes whereby councils are able to retain a certain proportion of their business rates. Sometimes it's increased, sometimes it's decreased. So, whether it's a quarter, whether it's a third, or whether it's zero, that there have been variations on that. But as things stand at present, I can't make any major announcement in the sense that the government is definitely changing, and you're going to be able to retain all your business rates, because that's not where there hasn't been any white paper in that regard. What there is in terms of devolution, a lot of work has been undertaken by Angela Rayner's team, so Jim McMahon and Sharon, Baron and Sharon from Stevenage. So she was a former council leader as well. A lot of the people in the local government team, they're trying to see how, given the huge challenges facing councils, we fully recognise that, especially in terms of adults and children's social care, those huge pressures have meant that councils, I know for example in Slough, there may be a similar sort of situation where housing, especially the temporary accommodation, people being housed, because of the cost of living crisis, more and more people are in temporary accommodation or rough sleeping. Those pressures are being felt in local government. That's why a lot of councils have either had to declare a Section 114 as in technical bankruptcy, or they're on the verge of that, and that has been because of the huge squeeze on local government finances. When the likes of Cameron and Osborne embarked on their austerity, it's had devastating impact on public services being delivered. That's why there have been issues, for example, in terms of the cleanliness of our streets, whether it's in terms of antisocial behaviour, the lack of police. So what they did in terms of austerity, when they took out more than 21,000 police officers, some of the most experienced people who were patrolling our streets, they were there to reassure businesses. They also kept crime levels a lot lower than what happened afterwards. And I also am cognizant of the fact that local government has also had to battle with a more than £1.4 billion cut to youth centres, youth clubs. Tackling antisocial behaviour or crime, or making a better business environment in our town centres and so on, it's not merely about business rates, it's more also that if there is a safer environment for everybody to operate, then businesses actually thrive. Now, with the cuts to policing and the cuts to on the preventative measures in terms of youth clubs, that has meant that there's been an increase in violent crime, an increase in knife crime. That has had a huge detrimental impact on families, on those young people who have either been impacted or on businesses. If you look at the level amount of shoplifting and so on, some of that has had a very negative impact on how they are able to function. So with regards to the wider business rates, I think at the moment the government is just trying to make sure that we get the right plan for our high streets, to make sure that we are able to balance the for example, online, the bricks and mortar businesses, to make sure that the burden is not on the bricks and mortar, it's not on the high streets with the business rates, that some of that is equalised with the online giants, that they are paying their fair share of tax, rather than the burden of business rates just being on local businesses. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think we have time for one or two more questions.
That's more for communications, but also involved with the party and Barnet. So I think very conscious that a lot of the plans at the moment for SMEs are very long term and will take a while to get in place. But there's quite a lot, certainly lately, that I'm hearing on the doorstep, a lot of worry about kind of the short term and how this is affecting small businesses as well as other things. Are you also worried about that, and how is there more the government can be doing this in kind of medium term whilst we're kind of working through the very bad legacy and getting towards the point where the new stuff's coming into place?
100%. That's in terms of we feel the pressure of some of those businesses where they just cannot make ends meet, and a lot of them are then having to fold. So that's one of the reasons why we focused in, for example, on some of the concerns that were coming to us when we were holding stakeholder engagement sessions around the country. When I was in Jonathan Reynolds' team, is that we realised that what we've got to do is to try to equalise, balance out things, and that's one of the things like we were just discussing in terms of business rates, so quicker solutions. But unfortunately, when you're trying to implement some of those policies, you can't just do it straight away. You've got to make sure that the government there is a parliamentary scrutiny, that rigour. So as soon as the government's proposing something, it then has to go through various stages of the parliamentary process. But then those things can actually be implemented, so that they're not just there for for short to medium term, but for a long term. In terms of we try to keep one eye on what's going on in the chamber, just in case there's a vote or something soon. But so to make sure that businesses in the short term can have better access to more trained, more skilled individuals. So that's why the pumping of money into our education, into skills apprenticeships is important, but also to make sure that business rates, that whole system is reformed. That is incredibly important. That was one of the key things that kept coming back again and again, is that it's just exorbitant. We're just going to shut up shop. We can't do this. We want to move out from the high street. We're going to go online. We're going to do this and that. So that's where the focus has been, to rejuvenate our high streets through reducing some of the burdens that have been placed by those businesses.
Amazing. Do we have any more quick questions before we finish up? One quick question. Two quick questions. Please go first. I'm fast on already.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Dhesi, thank you very much for taking the time to bring people together and share this forum today. I'm Dr. Kelly Culver. I'm Canadian.
All right,
I
brilliant.
sound different.
Lovely country yours too. We've been on several occasions.
Thank you. I've had a global consulting company for about 25 years, and last year took a decision with my business partner Peter Jones to establish a new venture here in the UK, and it's called the Resilience Nexus. And we look at resilience in companies and countries. And right now we have data that shows that resilience failures globally cost the economy $4 trillion. And I'd like to take you back to something you said earlier. You were talking about innovation. And we know that innovation is the thing that underpins resilience. And you also talked about how tough it is for SMEs to partner with government in terms of procurement and other types of things. How do you envision government at federal level, it's a Canadian term,
Straight away on you.
central government and local government to come together with their SME community using data, using big data, to co-create innovative products, solutions, services, and technologies that solve problems that your citizenry have. What's that sort of ecosystem sandbox? What does that look like? How would that happen? Because that is a phenomenal way to leverage growth.
Good. Well, first of all, pleasure to have you in the UK from Canada. And by the way, Canada is one of our closest allies, one of the Five Eyes allies. In fact, I met up with a couple of Canadian senators who were over during our meeting just last week as to how we are, when you talk about data and information and intelligence sharing, there's a lot of that going on. And I think that in terms of resilience, that is incredibly important. So that I've literally just come from a meeting of the Joint Committee on National Security Strategy. So we have been looking into various things to do with our defence and national security, but one of those key aspects is about resilience, how we as a country are more resilient, how we can be more self-sufficient, so that we are not reliant on just a particular nation for everything. We've got to work more closely with our allies, so there's a division of labour in effect as well. But given the complex threats that we face, including hybrid threats, something else that the Defence Committee recently been looking into. So we are undertaking an inquiry into defence in the grey zone, for example. So because of that, we need to make sure that resilience is there in our country as a whole, but also within our business environments. And that's why one of the things that we've done is, if you look at constructs come from renewables. Yeah. So we realise that businesses are paying too much for their bills, just as households are. That it's important that we bring down everybody's bills in the middle of a cost of living crisis, but also for businesses, for factories, that if we can bring our reliance also on, whether it's Russians or others, we are not dependent